Yeah, so now
Oh,
we are live.
okay.
Restream,
Should I
boom,
stop
boom,
painting my
boom.
nails?
Get it together, Ma. You're a professional. Oh my goodness. I did not realize how dirty my. I gotta. I gotta do a deep scrub. Deep scrub.
Yeah.
My mom comes for a
Well,
weekend and I have to scrub the place down.
I had grandma yesterday who's staying with me for all you podcast people listening. She and I tackled the kitchen because it's ant season in New Jersey.
Nice.
So we stripped all the cabinets of all the, you know, the drawer liners and stuff.
Right.
Can I tell
So
you
no.
the amount of food in Bobo's cabinet crumbs and whatnot, from over the years? We vacuumed all the little pieces out. So anyhow, she
Really?
felt good. She really helped me. And it was a help. She dried the stuff while I put it in, made it go a little
Did
faster.
you?
But
Yeah.
yeah.
I did. I did some cleaning. I've been doing some vacuuming because, as I said, my mother comes and it was just a mess after she left.
Well, he's full of it.
So how's the week been with Graham? Give us the. So wait. So right now, Grandma's there and Michael's there. Is Mike back yet?
No, Michael left for his adventure on Thursday.
He's at Penn State. So if anyone's going to the game,
Yeah.
but when does he come back?
I think he said either Sunday or Monday.
Damn.
Hopefully on Sunday because he's got an appointment on Monday,
I did not
and he
know.
flies out late Monday night back to his home.
I did not know you can spend that much time at Penn State. I'm gonna be honest.
Well, he was getting a ride, so he wanted to maximize his time there. And let's be honest, who wants to stay home when you can go be with your friends?
Yeah, that's true.
So I understood. To his point, and not many more times he's gonna be able to. That he wants to do this type of thing. He's not really that Mr. Alumni type of stuff.
Right.
At least not at school. It's too much of a hassle. And if some point we're not here in this area, it's a little bit more logistics to get to Penn State. It's a lot more expensive flying to State College from
Gotcha.
Miami than going through Newark and driving.
But the week itself's been pretty good. Grandma, now that we've pushed Grandma to you, how's it been?
It is what it is. I feel bad for her because it's very boring, right?
Yeah.
And she's itching to go further north. She's not really understanding that this is the last stop. Going north would be a visit. Everything with older people, it's just like kids. You got to have a routine. So I'd say
What's up,
we're getting into a good routine. Fortunately, it's a little different than the last time she was here because remember, I had grandma first when she fell. So I had the original can't move, can't do anything, stayed in the room with her, all that stuff at night. Now she's as healed as she's going to be. So she's a little bit more independent, which is good. And actually, last night I was able to sleep in my own bed, but I have to wear the alarm that vibrates
Well,
on me.
I can already see in your eyes I can see the tiredness. I can see
Yeah,
you're not
it's
getting the
coming.
full night's sleep. For those of you that
Yeah,
don't know,
it's okay.
because we're gonna have a lot of questions about that one. So my grandmother shattered her shoulder, and then now she's not as she's mobile, but she's got to be with us at all times. So she's with my mom right now,
Us.
and she's
Who's
just
us, mister?
she's just wreaking havoc in the house. She's
been
just
pretty
a strong.
good.
She's very ornery. She hits us.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting as they get older, you really do revert back to childhood. And
Kind of
she
do.
has,
Yeah.
we're going from, she had, rather
She's
than
90 by the
we
way.
have our moments when we're childish, but we're acting like an adult. We have our moments when we're adults, but we're acting like a little childish. So, we get a little stamping of the feet every once in a while. But for the most part, she's been good, but it's early yet. It's going to get tedious. Problem is, I can't give her a date yet when I can take her up further north to visit her friends and see her place because I don't know the schedule yet. And that was tonight's argument. When are you going to tell me so she can start, planning?
Just constant yelling. Oh, I'm sure Dad loves that.
No, she's not. We're not fighting. I mean, I don't. I feel sorry for her now. I don't get mad. I
Yeah.
mean, it's hard pill to swallow because I keep telling her, Mom, there is no, there is no going back to your place. Those days are over, and it would be an easier pill to swallow once I'm settled somewhere else and she realizes that nobody's up in that area anymore. I mean,
Yeah, that makes
pretty
sense.
sad when she was throwing your uncle's name around. Hey, he's going to take me up.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Okay. Good luck.
Well, I won't say no. You chat with him about that. That's your son. You figure it out. But so no, it's fine. No complaints. She's okay. We'll muddle through.
Nice. Okay, so since this is a live podcast, obviously we have our articles. The way we normally do this is we'll do an article or like a set of articles. Then everyone starts asking whatever questions they want. We'll do that pretty much every time. And then at the end, we'll do any Q&A for anyone that has any other questions and just wants to ask us random things. So I don't know where to start today. I think the biggest news this week was the Pope's death. Yeah. So, I did think it was kind of weird today watching, because they had I think today was the burial, right? Today or yesterday morning.
The funeral. Well, it was the funeral. I think it was at 3 a.m., because it's Italy.
I got to tell you something,
though. And they interred him.
I was looking at him in the casket, right? They had the casket open with the red.
Yes.
Why did he look so tiny? He looked like a dwarf.
Did he?
Yeah, he looked very, the proportions were just so off.
Can I tell you, I didn't watch any of it. Yeah. Not 1 minute. First of all, it was at 3 o'clock in the morning. I could have watched it. I was probably up. But I just didn't really, it's not. One of my articles was about that. And obviously they're saying, well, he was not as popular as John Paul II if you base it on the funeral size, the people flowing through St. Peter's. But the reporter, he said, but remember, John Paul II was Polish, and people from Poland can come realistically to Italy. Francis was from South America.
Right.
So it's a little harder. But, I'm not really buying that one because it's not like everybody flocks.
He wasn't the best of popes, to our understanding. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't the worst. Let's put it that way. But he wasn't that great. What was I gonna say? How long was his total? How long was he pope for? In my head, it feels like 4 years.
I don't know.
Let's see.
Might have been a little bit longer because remember he replaced Benedict. Benedict retired. Right. They forced him out, and then they pulled in Bergoglio.
Right. So he was Pope Francis, Pope for.
Could it be 10 years?
No way, really?
It could have been. Well, Benedict lived for a little while.
God damn! Wow, dude, that just goes to show how times just. So 2013 was when Benedict stepped down. So he's been He was head of the Catholic Church
12 years
since 2013. God, you're telling me I didn't graduate high school yet when Benedict stepped down?
Possible.
Oh,
Possible.
That's probably right because that whole. No, we didn't find out about Benedict sending those priests to that island until after, right? Till after he stepped down.
All of these guys have a checkered past. Even this one that we just put in the tomb. A lot of questionable things happened under him over there in Europe and in South America. So, always remember, these are just men. Some are, even over the centuries that we've had popes, that there's nothing to be. We've had plenty of them who were very questionable, Wow. The conclave is going to start on May 6th, about that time.
I always love that. Right, that's when they pick the new pope, right? Do you answer questions on here?
Right, you have to wait 15.
Sorry,
you have to wait.
I have to talk to chat at the same time, so just ignore me if you're talking.
Oh, I should ignore you. Okay, so you have to wait 15 days before entering the conclave, but no more than 20, unless all the cardinals arrive early enough. Benedict changed that because he didn't die, so he kind of put in that caveat. If everybody makes it in time, you can pick the next pope prior to the 20-day maximum.
I always love how they pick the pope, though. Listen. That's where you kind of get that cult feeling, that cult feeling where it's, hey, let's get all these guys in the Vatican, the what's it called where they vote for the new pope?
No, it's Vatican.
It is the Vatican. I thought they had a special building.
In the Vatican. Vatican's a whole complex, right?
Yeah,
where the Pope hangs out. Yeah. So they're all in Rome. They all meet and greet. Right. Some of them, or if not all of them, who were there in time were at the funeral, I would assume. As I said, I didn't watch it, but I remember seeing the cardinals at the funeral.
Right.
And they're going to meet apparently on Monday at 9 a.m. They swear an oath to follow the rules and to keep it secret, et cetera, as part of the conclave. And then they go in and they start the process and they pick the next pope.
That is so wild, though, how they're not allowed to leave until a pope is elected. Mm-hmm. So, Mom, let's hypothetically, let's put ourselves in there. To answer your question, Casual, let's go through our article, and then once we're done with the article, then we can ask questions. But towards the end, we'll do Q&A where you guys can ask literally anything. But put yourself in the shoes, right? The Pope just died. You're going to be spending a long period of time in the conclave, right?
Right.
What are you doing to prepare? What's your preparation phase?
I like to think that they do a certain degree of praying to
Right.
make the right decision. But it's my understanding from articles that I have read, it's as political as just about anything else. They form groups, they form cliques. They convince one group to choose this guy over the other, and then they
It's
supposedly
politics, right?
cast ballots. Oh yeah, totally, totally. I mean, the traditionally the Catholic Church, as we were talking about, remember it's been centuries that it's existed, and it's had some really ugly times. We've had schisms, we have everything else,
Yeah.
but the one thing that was constant is these traditions that they do. And something like this has been, it sounds kind of archaic, but think about it, that's kind of like jury duty. If you get sequestered, you don't leave until you
You're
have
done. Yeah.
a unanimous decision or a majority decision. So a lot of these things in our court system comes from these traditional things that go on. And yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And let's be honest, you looked it up one time. What
Yeah.
was the
I
longest?
actually
Wasn't
have
it
it
like a
right here.
2 year?
Guys, this is going to blow your mind how long these people were stuck in this building for. The longest papal election, and thus conclave, lasted 2 years and 3 months, spanning from
Yeah.
November 1268 to September 1271. Okay, so, and I remember they had to pick because they were running out on rations, remember?
Right. But hold on. These are cardinals. They don't do anything else.
Yeah,
They're
it's
not
true.
supposedly not married. I mean, present day, they're not supposed to be married. They don't have families. This is their one job is to pick a pope. They get elevated. I mean, some of them are head of dioceses, like Cardinal Dolan's
Right.
the head of New York, and some of the major cities they do run. But they have plenty of people beneath them that will run those offices while they're not there. And I'm sure with social media, I'm sure that's not allowed in there during the conclave. I don't know if they allowed in the evenings
Did
to do
you
work.
can you
for the
imagine if
diocese.
we had Cardinals on X just posting like, think I gotta go with this guy? You know how
Well,
bad that would be with a cross at the end?
it's so funny. Yesterday, Grandma said to me, she was looking at the Pope and the funeral procession. She goes, "What is this with all these people taking selfies?" Right.
Oh yeah,
The
that is
next day,
strange.
there was an article on, well, a comment on social media. I think a few people had said that it just goes to show you how much like the decorum has degraded. Where you got all these young people taking a selfie with the casket in the background,
It
like
is
no
strange, right?
solemnity. Yeah, it's a very strange world. It's that's the downside to being, a celebrity, if you will. That's people parade past, but you're supposed to do it as a somber moment,
Yeah.
mourning to show respect,
Well, you can get
not selfieing it.
you can also get into the topic of like the one thing that they talk about all the time with social media is the idea of celebrity has been kind of skewed, right? Like the celebrities were the people that were you would be lucky if you were able to talk to them or like say something to them. Now, you just jump on Twitter, go to Kim Kardashian's Twitter and just start berating her and maybe she'll see it or not. So I think the line of celebrity versus peasant has been kind of erased, if that makes sense.
Well, I think that's true in general, but I think, unfortunately, in my opinion, it's wonderful to outreach to every person like Christ did. That was his goal. You reach out to your enemies, you reach out to people who don't, but you do it with the idea that you're going to convert them. You're going to convince them to be a member of the church, right?
I
I
wasn't even
think
talking
this
about religion at
particular
that point.
pope,
I was just talking about in
well, I
general.
think this pope was one who they praise him for reaching out to everybody. For those of us who are, really steeped in the tradition and the more traditional Catholics, if you will, he reached out to everybody, but he was, I don't want to say accepting. There's nothing wrong with that. He was accepting of what the church considers sins. So it's the old saying, you love the sinner, you hate the sins. That alienated a lot of traditional Catholics
Right.
because, he was inviting people to be involved in all these events or these group discussions. Nothing wrong with that. But he was bypassing the good Catholics who've done a lot of research, who've been actively involved with the church, who are very smart people, have a lot to contribute. And he was putting in these individuals who are counter to the teachings of Christ. I don't need those individuals having dogma impact on the dogma of my church. That's kind of going backwards. Those are the people we're trying to convince to change, not have them in there. So I think that has a lot to do with the people parading by may have liked him because he reached out to everybody. Doesn't necessarily mean they were all devout followers of the church and
Right.
respectful of the tradition of the church. They were there for the show, right? They were there because, oh yeah, he was a nice guy, and he reached out to this group and that group, and blah 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 blah. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you put those people ahead of the core church, you know, it can alienate a lot of people. I think that was what they were trying to say about why there's so few people this time coming
Makes
through.
sense. Yeah, I mean also we are seeing a rise of Christianity again all over the world, but to your point, I think obviously the Pope has less and less a meaning when it comes to power in the like people. How do I put this? I don't know if I would say anyone that I know really looks up to the Pope. Does that make sense? Like he's a figurehead.
Well, I disagree. We're talking the position of the Pope. If you think about it, Christopher, when have you ever seen this kind of response for the head of any other church? There is no imam that
Right,
gets
but
elevated.
that's not what I'm saying.
There is no rabbi that gets this elevated. So yes,
Right,
it is still
the
a
position,
very powerful
right.
position.
Well, yes. So it's a powerful
Influential, I should say.
position, and we look
Influential.
at the Pope for like whoever the Pope is the leader of the church. But I do think that it's that in title, and what I mean is, I don't care if it's Pope Benedict or Pope Francis or whoever. It doesn't mean much to me, and maybe that's because we have separation of church and state here. I would be curious to see if other countries, especially European countries, actually care that much about the Pope. Like they love the idea of a Pope, but the actual Pope himself, I
there
wonder
are
what
places that are more devout than the United States. They have far more traditional Catholics. Like, for instance, South America and Latin America. There are far more devout people in the Catholic Church or who claim to be members of the Catholic Church, numbers-wise, percentage-wise, than parts of this country and parts of, like Canada or whatever. I told you the last podcast that for the first time, Catholics outnumber Anglicans in the UK since Henry VIII.
Yeah.
So in some places you're seeing a resurgence, and then in other places you're seeing, a lot of persecution.
But Mom, let me ask you this: if the Pope, and I'm not saying this would ever happen or wish anything on the Pope, but let's say the Vatican just got blown up, for instance, just wiped off the face of the earth. I don't think that's going to change anyone's opinion on being a Catholic or not. That's what I mean by not that much of a figure.
Right. No, right. Well, he has changed people's opinions on what it means to be Catholic or what it means to, he recently made a statement, I'm paraphrasing, basically the fact that any God will get you to God. Any religion will get you to God in the next life. That is totally counterproductive to what or counter message of Jesus Christ. There's only one way, and that's through him. We know that as Catholics. We know that as Christians. We accept the fact that other people don't have that faith. And on top of it, we also know from the man, the leader himself, from Christ, you will never destroy the Catholic Church.
Right.
He has said that, right? Now, does that mean the Vatican and the Pope and the cardinals and this and that? No, that's not what he meant. It has morphed into something, they're trying to base a lot of the stuff that's happened on the traditional faith, but it's morphed into this over the centuries, a political force.
Yeah,
empire
I also
in
think
and of itself.
exactly like that. I think that's the real problem with the Vatican. It's kind of become one, we treat it as its own country, so whoever's in there literally has whatever amount of power. But also the other thing that kind of, I don't want to say scares me, but the other thing that I find pretty interesting is the fact that there are parts of the Vatican that there's a lot of mysteries to the Vatican. And a lot of mysteries. Like there's still that library that not even the Pope's allowed in. What's in that library, Mom? I need to know.
Absolutely. I think it's very interesting.
What do I have to do to get into that damn thing? I need to know.
But that's my point. It has morphed into things like that. There was no Vatican in the times of St. Peter or St. Paul. These men just traveled the world as missionaries creating the faith, right? And that's not really what the church was ever supposed to be about. It's fine that we had a figurehead. It's fine that there was the Pope is considered the successor to St. Peter. Sometimes they refer to him as Peter because he's supposed to be the follower of the original person that Christ chose to lead his church, the cornerstone of the church, Peter the Rock. Okay.
Peter the Rock.
But it doesn't mean that, we've had to kind of fly without a plan. And over the centuries, it became a political force, and people used religion, as other religions do now. they use religion as a weapon against their own people. And there are parts of the Catholic Church that still do that. I do agree, but it's not acceptable to do that.
Right.
Other religions, it's acceptable. In our religion, we've come out of the Middle Ages. We've gone past the Spanish Inquisition. So now we judge our
It
Pope
kind of
based
still
on.
it's kind of still feels like the Middle Ages a little bit. When I think of the Vatican, maybe it's just my skewed imagination, but the amount of hidden truths that are in there are it does kind of feel very mysterious, like a part of history we don't know. Does that
Okay.
kind of make sense? Subject.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they don't share certain things. I
Yeah,
really
because
don't.
that to
On the
me,
flip side,
if
I'll
I
say
wasn't
this.
Catholic,
Normally,
real fast, mom, if I wasn't
good.
Catholic, right? If I didn't have, or I was atheist or whatever, and I see those parts of the Vatican that people aren't allowed in, or like I would think that all that stuff should be open to the public, in quotations, just because I think you do have to be part of the Catholic faith to be in there. Just like how other religions you're not
Well,
allowed
you
to
don't
go
have
in.
to be
Yeah.
Catholic. No, that's
Well,
not
you know what I
necessarily
mean,
true.
but I mean to
Anybody.
go into the super deep parts. Like, why is there historical knowledge in the Vatican that no one is allowed to see? Like, to me, that just makes it feel more cultish than a religion. Does that?
Clandestine is the word you're looking for. Clandestine, secretive for no reason, like clandestine, in a kind of
That
a
sounds like
negative thing.
That sounds. You know what that sounds like? That sounds like saying clandestine is like trying to avoid the word cult. Because
It's not, no, it's not a cult because you're free to leave our faith at any time,
right. I
right?
guess
We don't.
that's the
No,
definitional difference.
that's not to say, and I want to clarify it. That's not to say that there aren't some, extreme religious people in every faith who force their kids to do and force the people to live a certain way. It's just that our church doesn't sanction that. It doesn't agree with that
Right.
anymore, right? It's not like the Spanish Inquisition was centuries ago, hundreds of years ago. My point is the Vatican, that's not really what the church was ever about. And my feeling if is at one time I was like, oh, it's ridiculous what the Pope wears and having all this artwork. I mean, it's priceless artwork, it's priceless things that go on that we have in the Vatican and that the church has sanctioned over the years, right?
Right.
Over the centuries. Think about it. Michelangelo painted for the Pope. They did things for the Pope, sculptures just for the Pope. And they did it for a decade. It took them to carve things and to paint things. Okay. And he's not the only one. The church paid for those things. So, yes, they're entitled to keep those things and they're entitled not to show it, whatever they want to do. At one point, I was like, oh, that's ridiculous. Think about the corruption with all that. But then on the flip side, when you see horrific things that happen in the world and wars, right? World War I, World War II, they bomb these cities. I'm kind of thankful that a lot of the greatest works of arts were in a somewhat sacred place, right? Where people didn't go in and loot it. We'd have nothing from history, right?
Yeah.
And if anything, the church is a good example of, that the history. It maintains a history and a universal history, not just a history of the church, but the art, the culture, the ages, as long as the church has existed. So, having said that, I don't know why. I mean, sometimes you hide things because I'm sure there are dark things in our church that they don't want people to know about.
Oh, absolutely.
Not to say that we're happy about it or proud of it, but we're just in a position. I mean, look at the scandals that have gone on and continue to go on with some of these priests that have attacked children, molested children. This was hidden by a lot of cardinals. That was acceptable to do. In their mind, they thought I'm better off preserving the church than exposing this horror. Well, it was the ass backwards way of doing things,
Yeah.
right?
Um. What? I guess I don't know the history. Why is the Vatican in Rome? I actually don't know. It's definitely some knowledge I probably should know, but whatever.
Well, you do know it if you think about it, right?
Well, I'd have to
Rome
assume it had to be
was.
pushed. One, it had to be the biggest civilization at the time, right? This had to be back when they were
So it
conquering.
started at the time of the Roman Empire, and that was the main.
Yeah.
You're right. Rome was the main part, right? Jesus was born in the time of Caesar Augustus in the Middle East, but Rome was still the center of everything. That's why the Roman guards arrested Jesus. They
Right.
controlled all these areas that they conquered. Rome was the center. Then we had the split in the church because Constantinople became the center, and then you have when Rome fell, Charlemagne, right, and Constantinople, that became
Oh, right.
ancient center and the rest. But then the church split, and now you had the Eastern Orthodox and the Western Church. Rome was the head of the Western Church. Constantinople later, what is it, Turkey? Um, The Byzantine Empire. I can't think of the name. It's out of my mind.
You're talking about
Constantinople being the
what's
capital
known
or
as
the main
now?
part of that church. Yeah.
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 Now it's Turkey. What's Turkey's capital?
Budapest. No.
No, not Budapest. Oh wow, this is a problem.
Istanbul.
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 Thank you. Thank you.
Istanbul. But it was Constantinople at the time. A big change was also, and probably historians will be mocking me if they were listening, but
Uh oh.
with the Crusades.
That's what I was gonna say. I
So
thought the Crusades
eventually,
would be
right,
what pushed them
the
to
Eastern
there.
Church started to collapse because of the number of Muslims who moved into who were part of that area, and then they had the Crusades, and that's when the Western Pope, I'm sorry, Western Pope in Rome, he rose up and said, "Hey, we need to defend the Holy Land," and started all the Crusades.
Was there ever a
and became very
time?
powerful.
Was there ever a time where we had two popes at the same time
Oh
because of
yeah,
the split?
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
I thought
Oh,
so.
we've had popes that were married. They had illegitimate children. I mean, we've had a lot
Yeah,
of stuff that
it's
went
called the
on.
Wild West, Mom. It was sick. Okay, it's called drama.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I mean, the church has had its dark side. We've had it recently when we've seen what's gone on in the church.
Yeah.
It'll be a blemish. 100 years from now, people will look back and say, "Oh, remember the evil time in the church." It's made up of men, and they're fallible men. And Christ made that clear when he chose Peter, who denied Christ 3 times in one night. And Jesus said to him, "You're going to do it." I feel that was a message to all of us. Peter was just a man, a devout man, a saint, and everything else. But he's a man, and the men that are going to run the church, and they will make mistakes. They're not perfect, and they're not
Yeah,
infallible.
it's yeah. The history of the church goes deep, obviously, but I don't know. So who pays for the Vatican? Does that come out of Italy's tax dollars or?
No. Vatican has its own money.
So it's
and
all
the
based
Peter's
on.
Pence and the Catholic Church, the people of the church
Does
support
it?
it.
You're right. Does it? When we give at mass, does any of that go back to the Vatican?
Oh, well, it goes to the diocese,
Right.
But
And
if
then
you
the
remember, and that's
diocese.
one of the reasons why I don't particularly care for this pope. This pope cut a deal with China. Nobody likes to talk about it. In order to keep a Catholic Church presence and have cardinals and diocese, if you will, in communist China, China said, "All right, we'll let you have it, but we're going to pick your bishops and we're going to pick your, I don't know if they pick the cardinals too." Okay? That goes totally against our church, and that should have been an absolute no, not going to happen. So the communist China allegedly gave a chunk of change to the Vatican in exchange for the right to control who was going to run their church. And a while ago, they elected a very devout, wonderful cardinal who had potential to be Pope, Cardinal Wen. I don't know if he ever got out of prison. I don't know if he died there, but they threw him into jail because he was very outspoken and said, "This is outrageous. This
Wow.
cannot happen." Yeah. You should
Very
look up his
interesting.
story. It's a very, I'm afraid to look and see what happened to him. A very learned man, very, very talented man. And unfortunately, they threw him in jail. But that's another way that they get, their money, right?
Gotcha. I did not realize that. Do we have any insight on the upcoming pope? Do we have one? Like, do we have an idea of who it's going to be? Is it like politics all over again?
No, but I was looking up, interestingly enough, I was looking up some of the contenders. I saw an article, The Good, the Bad,
Yeah.
the Ugly, is basically the article.
Which is a great name for a up and coming pope.
I like the movie, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Depending on who you ask, I mean, the person writing it was a conservative. There is a wonderful, he would be, I think, the first African-American, Cardinal Sarah from Africa. But he's unfortunately retired, and he's, I think, 80-something. So they tend not to choose older gentlemen because they won't necessarily last as long, which I think is wrong, but whatever. There are some that are way too out there for my liking and for the writer's liking. And then there's some that are, go with the usual, the Italians, right? There's traditionally mostly Italians who become the Pope.
Right.
That's why John Paul II was such a big deal, because he was the first Polish Pope. And never had a Polish Pope. It was always Italians, and then we had a Polish Pope. There was an Asian Pope, a cardinal in the running for Pope.
Wait a
That is a lot
minute. There's an Italian one named Pizza Balla. Did you know this?
Pizzaballa.
Yeah.
Probably. I
Wow.
saw the
Pierre Batista. Wow. Pierre Battistella Pista Pizza Balla. That's not a real person. There's no way that's a real person.
No, that's him. That's his name.
Italy, Philippines, Antonio. Wow.
Yeah, the Filipino one, the Asian one. Yes, he has potential. He's young. I think he's somewhat
He's young.
traditional. Wasn't
Young.
he? I think he's
He's not that young. He's got gray hair.
60s. Was he in his
Is
60s?
that your definition of young?
But you have to remember, Chris, to get to the level of cardinal, you've had a lot of years in the
Okay,
church.
fair point. Fair
That's why
point.
popes tend to be older, at least nowadays. In the past, they'd have kids be pope. It was ridiculous.
Wow. Because I'm looking at, so we got mostly from Italy. Not most, but there's Japan, Philippines. Then you got a Canadian. Have we ever had a Canadian Pope?
Nope,
Probably not.
no
Just
Canadian pope.
Ooh, Dominican Republic of Congo. Fridolin Ambagongo Besu. Man, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough picking these names.
Well, I mean, that's the issue because you want somebody who you would think first and foremost the message of Christ. Secondly, they have to be competent and they have to know many languages. They have to do, the best they can possibly do. You want it from an area that I don't want to say politically correct, but could have a political impact. Somebody from New Ghana, if there's nothing going on there, that's a small area, that's not necessarily seen as a universal individual. That's why they always tend to go with the Italians. It's Europe, the center of the world. Well, Europe has been the center of the world for a very long time now. And, if you notice, there's no American cardinals in the running. You
Right.
never see an American.
Yeah, it's complete.
Um, so yeah, it's still the church is still a little bit in the, and that's why it was a big deal when they picked somebody from South America. The people in South America were thrilled, but that's a very strong Catholic, traditional Catholic
Right.
region of the world. So it made sense to pick somebody like that.
Huh.
But anyhow, enough on the Pope. We don't have a lot of people who care about.
Yeah, true. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. I mean, let's just go right into the fun ones. Oh well, actually, before we get to that, Mom, let's do.
You
Let's.
want to Did you want to do questions and answers though? You told
Well,
somebody.
I know.
Wait till
Yeah,
the
someone had a question. Does anyone have any questions about the article? Because we can ask random questions, but we'll do those at the end, just because we have a lot to go through, and I would rather go through all that before we do random questions.
Yeah.
But we can answer as many random questions as possible. Now, I did something, Mother, that you're not going to be super happy about. You ready? While we're going
boy.
to Brooke went to Cheesecake Factory today, right? Mom, now
Oh.
the nearest Cheesecake Factory is in Raleigh, which is 2.5 hours away. Yeah, you didn't know that?
You went there?
No, I
You
didn't.
went there?
No,
Oh.
Brooke did. Right?
I was gonna say, damn, you wouldn't take me to the airport, but
Yeah.
cheesecake.
That'd be such a bummer. That'd be no, but she owed me one, so I was like, you have to go all the way to Raleigh to no, today's her mom's birthday, so they met out there, and she said, Chris, do you want a cheesecake? And I was like, is the Pope Catholic? So she got me. She just got home, so I might just quickly go grab my cheesecake. But yeah, so I'm excited, and I couldn't. Mom, well, the reason you're going to be upset, Mom, is because I couldn't just do the slice. I'll bring it to Ansous tomorrow. Don't worry, but we'll see what's left.
No, 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 no.
I knew my mom would be proud.
No, I'm not the least bit proud.
But
You're an enabler, Chris.
my did
You're enabling yourself, Chris.
my brisket thing came out today. My pot roast was perfect.
Good. I told Dad about that. He was happy to hear that. You could feed yourself for a month if you have to.
Yeah, if I could just cook a brisket every day. But so wait, one question: if I wanted to just make pulled pork, like brisket, where it literally pulls apart.
Oh my God, this is such a boring
Hold on, I
podcast.
just have a question. So if I was to pull it apart,
I'm gonna leave it.
how do they do that? How do you do that? How do you make it so that it's like pull apart?
The same way. You slow cook a pork round, blah blah blah, with you put stuff on it. There's recipe for it, or you just throw water on it. You can get a packet. You put sauce. If you want barbecue sauce, then you just slow cook it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Anyway, so back to what we were talking.
Ask Miss Souffle, okay?
I will.
Miss Souffle
We will talk about
tell
that. I
you.
haven't completely
Chat
announced
with
that
it
yet.
tomorrow while you're shoveling cheesecake in your faces.
If
Oh
it
my
lasts that
God.
long. Anyway, so Zelensky and Trump met at the Vatican today after the funeral. What are the thoughts?
I didn't even know that.
Oh, really?
No.
They had a 15-minute conversation, and everyone's talking about how well it went. Very strange, though. It's so they did it in one of the basilicas on the Vatican property, however you call it, the campus.
It's
There's
not a basilica; it's an office. They have offices there. I
no,
don't
they
think
did
they have a
it. They did it
basilica.
in the basilica. Like they did it in
Okay.
the center of a giant circle, and it's just the two of them alone.
Are you sure Trump wasn't just hearing confession?
Here. I'll show you.
You sure he wasn't absolving Zelensky and then
It was close. It was close. Oh, hey,
he's not
there's
even
Mason. What's up,
Catholic?
Mason? So, wait. Let me send you the picture. But it's him and Zelensky. It's just a wide open room, and
Yeah.
they're talking for 15 minutes, and it's just very like what's the word? It's very
Scripted, unscheduled,
unprofessional, I guess. But there's no. I don't want to call them subordinates, but it's just those two, and the one guy with the
Mhm.
camera off in the distance. But
Right.
they talked for 15 minutes, and then Trump's just firing off tweet after tweet on Air Force One. But that's what he
Okay.
does. So I was just wondering what you thought about it, because it seems like
Well,
he's.
I've heard,
Go ahead.
I've seen some headlines this past
Let me see if I
week.
can send you
Trump
the
had
picture.
said, we're walking away if we don't get a deal done. I don't blame him. We got a lot to do in our country. As long as I'm not funding it anymore, if we walk away, Zelensky's screwed. Russia will just roll in and whatever. Then I saw Crimea's off the table for Ukraine, so no matter what, Trump's gonna get. He's fine with Putin taking Crimea, and come to a deal. I kind of, as we've said from the beginning, I don't care about Ukraine. I got now my border's taken care of, so now I'm a little bit more willing
Focused.
to say, all
Yeah.
right, where did my money go over there? Go find it, Mr. Doge, and go find out where my money is, because everything I'm hearing is it's just so far we've had, what was it, two of the three, or maybe all three of the Trump assassinators
Right.
all had ties somehow to Ukraine. What the? Okay.
Yeah. A little strange.
I don't know what goes on with that country. I'm so sick of that country. It was a nothing country, and now all of a sudden I'm finding so much stuff, money going to them, us being involved in the coups in their country. We
It's a,
got more important things in our own country to take care of. I just don't.
my
I'm
other
with Trump in the
problem.
sense that we want peace, but
Yeah.
you can't, if they're not going to sit at the table, you're on your own.
It's the most we've put into a war by far, but also there you have the oligarchs over there going, "Hey,
I don't know that that's true. I don't know that's true, Chris. You can't throw that around.
I'm
'Cause
pretty sure that's true.
we spent a fortune in
How
Afghanistan.
much?
Remember, there were over 10 years in Afghanistan,
How much money?
let alone what we spent in Desert Storm and all the other ones. So
I thought that was the big issue. Let's see. How much money did we put into
I
Ukraine?
don't think it is. I
Um,
think like trillions of dollars were spent in Afghanistan. I
Really?
mean, a ridiculous amount.
how
Yeah.
much
Let
money?
alone how much money we lost when they just took all our equipment when Biden pulled out.
Let me see. Afghan total. Oh, fair point. So it's definitely the most we've put into a non-combat war, I should say, that we weren't physically boots in the ground for.
Well, I'm not looking at the data,
Yeah.
but maybe. I mean, I don't care how much, whatever we put in has not been accounted for, and I have a problem with that.
Yeah, so it says over 2 point. So Afghanistan specifically, just so to your point, we're not talking out our asses. $2.3 trillion. The Watson Institute Public Affairs Cost War Project estimates the total of Afghanistan war U.S. at $2.313 trillion.
Yes.
Right, and then it says more than $2 trillion. President Joe Biden and other sources have cited figures over $2 trillion, which offers. Oh, so that's just the second answer. Okay. But the most we've put. So we've put in $182 billion into emergency funding for Ukraine. Right? It has to be the
Sounds
most we've
about
put.
right.
Yeah, it has to be the most we've put into a war that we're not involved in. It has to be.
I don't know. I mean, I don't. It's present dollars. I don't know. You're probably right, but again, it's a border we've never been involved in, over a border that has nothing to do with us, for a country that you could make the case that other administrations were getting too involved through the USAID and these other corrupt groups that we're now learning using our tax dollars to do everything but what their mission was supposed to be, funding these things overseas. So you can make the case that you made this mess, America, so you need to help us fix it. I personally feel like Trump, go in there and fix it, and we're done. Move on. And I'm hoping after Doge, I just throw this out, I'm hoping everybody listening to the podcast, American citizens, I hope we go into it saying from now on, no more shelling out cash unless we have a Doge team up the ass of these countries to account for every penny of U.S. dollars that we send over there.
Right, and that was what I was trying to get into a second ago. Because of that, Right. Remember when we found out like how much of it they didn't even go over? Like there's so much money not even accounted for. So what happened to all that money? And that went to the oligarchs. That went to probably Zelensky's pocket, other politicians over there. So that's why when I see,
And back here, funding things back here
oh, that's right.
into
Yeah.
these NGOs that go right back into the pockets of various groups. Some Republican groups, but mostly Democratic groups. Some campaigns they were tracing the money to.
Do you think
But we need a definitive answer where this money's going.
do you think we're at the tail end of that war?
For the U.S., I think we are. I think with this new president, he made it perfectly clear. Trump got elected on many things, but one of the things, even in 2016, he said, enough with these endless wars that we get into. I've been all for that since before 2016. Stop funding these wars overseas, right? It just drains the taxpayers. Why were we in Afghanistan for that long? That's ridiculous.
No.
We were supposed to get in and get out after 9/11. And we wound up because we wind up being the protection force for everybody. Same thing with NATO, same thing with everything else. Why are we protecting Europe? Why do we put the most money in? And whenever there's soldiers, the first thing to do is scream is, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? You know, where's America? Why do we have to send our sons and daughters to fight every freaking conflict? We don't rely on Europe for that much anymore. And now you see it with the tariffs. Perfect example. It's the same scenario. This is how America gets shitted on every time. Same scenario. Everybody's up in arms. Oh, things are going to cost more money. Is it so much to ask that other countries do exactly what we've been doing all along? Why do I have to pay tariffs for other stuff, but they don't have to? If they do it, it's wrong. If we do it, it's acceptable. Same thing with these wars. Yeah. So anyhow, I'm hoping it's coming to an end for the sake of America. We need to put that money into something else. By the way, and I can segue into my article, how about we continue to help the people from the hurricane? Because apparently an Amish community in Pennsylvania is working their asses off in North Carolina to help the poor people struggling. Those individuals, those Amish workers, they're phenomenal.
Whatever they do, I don't know what the hell.
Time.
Yeah, you've seen, the famous, is it The Simpsons or Family Guy where they build that barn and they're like, tear it down and then all pick it up and move it over? You've never seen that? Oh, that's a good one. But yeah, I mean, no power tools, but they make it last. I don't know how the hell they do it.
And does it get any mainstream media attention? No. But the irony is still these people in North Carolina, up until right before Trump was elected, they still had no houses, nothing to live in. They were living in hotels. Okay? But meanwhile, we're funding, how much did you say? Billions of dollars to an overseas war?
Yeah, that's scary. But also, whatever happened to Hawaii? Remember when Hawaii got burned down and no one talked about it? What happened to Hawaii?
I think they're struggling in parts too. They have air issues. I remember hearing some story a couple months ago.
Yeah.
The people there saying nothing's changed. Our air is still bad. East Palestine, Ohio, they still have issues with their water. East Palestine, whatever. They're still having issues with their water. The water's still toxic. I think J.D. Vance was making a stink with the EPA. It was Zeldin to get on that. I'm pretty sure that
that's
he's
a pull
addressed
if you remember that. That is a crazy pull if you were able to remember that from, we talked about, what, like a year ago at least?
East Palestine?
Yeah, the East Palestine stuff? Yeah, how long ago was that? Right, that's when the train derailed,
more than 2 years. Yeah, that was the train derailed, destroyed the water. All the kids, everyone was getting very, very sick, and nobody did anything. Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, with Hawaii, the problem with Hawaii, and the same with California after the fires, even if you were to rebuild everything, this is the part people forget. There's still you can't live there for 5 years because the air is destroyed. Right? That doesn't just disappear. You can't just start rebuilding and live there. It's not how it works. There's toxins in the air that when you have a massive fire like that. So even if you were to rebuild, no one can live in those areas for at least 5 years.
Yeah, I can understand that, but I just feel for certain things like hurricanes, that should have been bing, bang, boom, put the money in there. If you're talking, what was it, $183 billion? How about we carve off a piece of that and bring North Carolina back to life? Then we can worry about the other areas that'll take a lot longer, like California and whatnot. But It's
But Mom, we have no
there's
more
always better
reserve funds, right? We spent it all on
well,
you.
yeah.
What's it called?
Okay.
What are the people that help called? Is it the
Salvation Army? Oh,
no,
the
no, no,
FEMA. The
FEMA. Thank
FEMA.
you, FEMA money.
FEMA funds.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
FEMA funds. That I mean, they depleted that in like the first day of, was it Hawaii? I don't even remember what it was.
Yeah. Apparently they did some emergency funding. There was some scandal with that too. I haven't heard anything about that since then. But um point is, that's the great part about this country. You have people like an Amish group, right? These
Yeah.
are farmers in Pennsylvania. They're people consider them backwards because they don't live with the amenities of today. But if there's one thing they can do, they work as a community and they work together.
Well,
And they're down there doing the Lord's work, hoisting up buildings, probably better construction than a lot of people today with their mansions,
I'm
with
just
these pole
saying they
barns and
got that
whatnot.
weird stove that can somehow heat a house without fire, and I swear to God, that's black magic. Someone's got to do a research study on that shit.
Oh my God.
There's no way. But no,
Well,
good for
it's
them.
good. A good story.
But hey, about time someone helps, because I know over there is still a mess. What other ones do we have? Mother.
And to your point, and that's what I was saying. How about we peel off some of this money from these forever wars and put it into our country?
But Mom, if I needed to make some money, I'd go right into chiropractics.
Oh, jeez.
My mom sent me an article. Again, I'm sorry you guys can't see the articles, unlike when we do the recorded podcast, because it throws off it'll mess up the shorts version of the live stream. But my mom sent me a picture. I guess I could just quickly show it to you guys. But I mean, we're just cracking necks here, boys. Instagram.
Well, the article is from pulling it from TikTok. A lot of these feeds on TikTok is very popular, and that's
like
what
'em.
prompted some of these chiropractors.
I'm a problem.
One of the guys, they asked him, "Have you seen these things on TikTok?" And he's one of these people that testifies in court cases. Goes, "Yeah, I've worked for some of the defendants. Some of those people in those videos were my defendants, meaning people who are sued because of what happened."
Yeah.
So, it's a readjustment of the neck, but you got a lot of stuff going on in the neck. I didn't even realize, okay? And it's a soft tissue area. You can move it and adjust it. Sometimes it's as simple as like the vertebrae are not in the right position and they move the soft tissue.
I remember practicing on Ken and Mike growing up. I was like, Ken, you lay down.
My gosh.
Fuck it.
Yeah, you can't do that. 86% of Americans are living with neck pain,
yeah.
but if it's not done properly, it could lead to strokes. People have been stroking out. Is that true? And that's the debate these chiropractors were having. Many problems can result from chiropractors failing to do their due diligence beforehand. One common theme from all the doctors was you really have to talk to people. You just can't walk into a TikTok and snap somebody's neck, right?
Debatable.
You got to know their history. You got to know what's going on, right? Because they could have issues that are underlying. There was one supermodel that they reference in it. She was having a lot of pain she had to pose a certain way for a long period of time. She wanted to go to the chiropractor, but it turns out she was nauseous all week. She had all these other symptoms. He did the adjustment, and one of the person testified that the adjustment's not really what killed her. What killed her was the fact that there was a sensitive area at the time before she even went in. And the chiropractor should have known that if he did his due diligence ahead of time and said, you know what? It's not advised that we do the adjustment. We need to look at the underlying issues that you may have. She wound up dying.
The problem with chiropractics is I don't believe that they have to actually get medical degrees, but there are good chiropractors out there who actually did more than just chiropractic degree. I guess you would, I don't know what you call it. One's a certification, the other one's like an actual degree, but you can get a job in both. So just because someone has the certification doesn't mean that they're the best. When reality, you want the doctor that can do it, right? I'm trying to explain.
Sure.
It's kind of like acupuncture, right? Anyone can stick needles in someone, but
we're having that issue now as we're learning about all the different medical degrees out there in the DEI
oh my God,
programs. Yeah. So we're gonna have the same issue with a regular MD, let alone a chiropractic doctor or doctors and stuff. It's only as good as the doctor, and that was their point. They're good chiropractors, they're bad chiropractors. One of the things that sets you apart is if they do the due diligence.
Let's put it this way: if you're getting an adjustment and you see the guy setting up a tripod to put it on TikTok, probably go the other way.
Yeah, don't think that's the highlight of the.
If you're getting ready to if you're getting ready to go down on the thing and you see the guy setting up the camera, that's how you know you should probably find a different chiropractor. What else do we got?
Well, it's an interesting article. You get multiple opinions about it, but if anything else, it does make you say, just pause for a minute. If you go to a chiropractor who's quick to just adjust you and they don't know anything about you, that's a concern. That's a red flag.
Yeah.
Before you do anything, they should do some work about into your history.
Um, you know who needs a good chiropractor after the absolute neck thrashing that she's gonna be getting? Freaking Beyonce, mocked as ticket
Beyonce.
flock. Wait, sorry. Beyonce, I just realized that was a terrible transition, by the way, but I tried
Yes,
making
it
it
was.
work. Yeah,
That's okay.
sorry. It's what we do. We sometimes you
try.
gotta take swings, right?
You try.
You can't bat 300 every time. Beyonce mercilessly mocked as tickets for flop Cowboy Carter tour reach same price as McDonald's meal. That's a good one. So here's the article itself. I mean, we all knew she was going to do poorly. Even Katy Perry's tour is doing horrible right now. People are telling her to cancel it. That's how bad
Well,
it's
now
doing.
hold on. Let's backtrack a little bit. What the article talks about is she's not. Well, first of all, your comment about the Happy Meal. One of the person's comment was the best. They go, "Where are you living where a Happy Meal costs $27?"
Yeah, $27.
More than $27. But I think it was a Minecraft Happy Meal. And by the way, it could be in California. If you're buying tickets out there. So she's kicking off this concert in California. In the past, she has sold out and done really well when she hadn't sold it out at this point and had the same scenario. So her fans are saying, hold on before you judge. This has happened before. We all know that this Cowboy Carter album did not do well. A lot of people are not really into her with the whole cowboy perspective.
You already have a double whammy there, right? So number one, you're in California and you're doing country music. Now, I don't need to know the demographic of California to know they're not listening to Morgan Wallen, right? They're people that still remember old Beyonce, right?
Yeah.
I don't. The last song I heard from Beyonce might be "If I Were a Boy," which came out like when I was in grade school. I don't know what happened after that. I'm going to be honest.
She has her fan base, right? And she's
we got to be careful here. The Beyonce fan base, like they're the kind of people that'll get you canceled. My DMs later are going to be telling me to freaking jump off a bridge.
Yeah, well, that's true. They're very.
It's sad. It's sad.
Loyal. Well, but I don't mind when they cross over, like Taylor Swift crossed over, right? She was considered country, I think, originally, or who's the other one? Faith Hill crossed over. You could do that as an artist if you're really into it, but I just feel like they are really forcing this album like it's the greatest thing. I'm not a Beyonce fan, so I don't even know it.
The other big hit was the fact that album came out of nowhere and wins the Country Music Award. So she beat out every other country singer for best album. And it's like, one, I can't name a single song. She had one song that they promoted the crap out of, but that one, and then even she was surprised. So that was the big, first off, the country community is not going to like you because you just took it from everyone else.
Let me give you some general perspective on awards, okay? Somebody had said to me tonight, do you realize that the Academy Awards and the Emmy made an announcement that from now on you must watch the movie if you're going to vote on it?
Thank God.
What does that tell you about the quality of these awards? The people voting have not even necessarily seen it. That's why you wind up with all these movies that we shake our head going, that one?
Yeah.
Of all the movies out there? Or this year, and everybody always comes out every year with a pun. So back to Beyonce. I can't judge it. I don't know her work, but it just seems like, well, it's Beyonce doing it. So right there is going to get attention because she's doing it. The quality wasn't there. She got an award. Weren't they questioning? Like a lot of people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like exactly. Even she was surprised. Like you can see her face. She's like,
yeah, there's something really weird about those award shows.
No one's ever voted on those. Yeah. Now that we know what goes on, I mean, like American Idol? I think they were the ones that really showed that the voting doesn't really matter because in the end, like they had people vote. Like they do every year, I believe the people vote. And then they found out like those votes are complete bullshit. Like there's 12 judges that actually pick in the end. So it doesn't even matter.
And I still say Beyonce and her husband in the background with the whole P. Diddy stuff. There's some question marks there.
Good point.
They haven't made any statements. That happened since the Cowboy album came out. And I think that, she's probably paying some PR people a whole lot of money to make sure her name and her reputation doesn't get attached to anything that's going to drag her really down a black hole
Right.
that P. Diddy's in right now,
The diddler, as they call him.
Yeah.
But also, I forget where I was going with this, but also, I was going to go to Katy Perry's concerts. Did you see like her concerts are just not great? Like she's really struggling. Mom,
Yeah, we talked
as we
about
said
that
last
last
week,
time.
time to hang it up, Katie. It's time to hang it up. Just keep being a judge. It's time. Hot
It's
and
time.
cold is a dark horse. Those were too long ago. It's time to stop, Katie.
Well, but you know what, Chris? All it takes is one hit, and they're back on top again. That's what they live for. Just get me
Once
that one hit.
Once that one hit hits the cell phones, everyone's hitting. And speaking of cell phones, how Gen Z became the most gullible generation. Okay, now we're batting back to 300. Here we go.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to figure out Gen Z. I know I'm considered Gen X.
I don't know what the hell I am. I don't care.
It might be your brother's generation. I'm not sure. Your youngest brother. So they're the worst on discerning fact from fiction, apparently. 3 out of 5 Zs between the age of 13 and 26 get their news from social media.
Oh.
Okay? So all info, obviously not accurate. We know that on social media. Problem is, they don't know the difference. They're having trouble discerning real. I just want to point out, this is a political article, Politico article. Political tends to be slanted. And, they throw out things like they believe in all misinformation and, they refuse to look at mainstream media to get their source. Well, we know why. I don't blame them for that. But the point that they're making in the article is because they are so skeptical of traditional media, hey, Politico, I wonder why, right? They're looking more into what's online, and now they're starting to buy some of the conspiracy stories.
Yeah.
Okay? Because some of these conspiracy stories turn out to be true. So it makes it very difficult for anybody, especially younger people that have only known this type of media, to discern what is true and what is misinformation.
My only problem with this article, and I would be curious to see, they're talking about fake news specifically, right? They're not really
No,
talking.
they're not.
Okay, so they're not. So like AI stuff too, is what they're also talking about.
Well, they mentioned AI as being a problem also because AI is only as reliable as what the source is.
So my problem with this article, Mom, I've been doing this a long time. I've been on the internet for over a decade now. I work with AIs. I've seen them. I've done all this. It is getting harder for me at 29 years old to discern some of the real and fake stuff. We are definitely getting close to that point where we will not be able to tell what's fact or fiction. The only way that I knew, I was watching something the other day. It was something that had to do with a game called Overwatch, where the first half of it, you're like, oh, okay, that's an interesting change that they made to the game or whatever. Then by the end, they give you something that's so outlandish, you're like, oh, there's no way that that's true. But if they didn't give me that last part, I totally would have fell for the beginning. So it is getting to that point where with AIs and stuff, I don't blame these kids because it's going to be all ages. It's not just going to be the Gen Zs. So
yeah.
I don't know.
No, but here's the point, though. My generation, we had traditional news. We have something to compare it to. We've seen the decline of traditional, nightly news where they just give you the who, what, when, where, why, and how. That morphed into something else, which we've been seeing over the last 10, 20 years that the current president's been pointing out, oh, this is fake, this is fake. We saw the fake in real time. Your generation, maybe a little bit, but mainly your younger brothers and future generations. They don't have that nightly news to compare it to. That used to be somewhat accurate. All they have now is this conglomeration with AI online. They have to pick through that. They're also coupled with the fact, and this is why it's so important about education, they're not being taught how to think critically. They're being taught how to be indoctrinated, right?
Right.
That's the emphasis in schools. That's why it's so important when parents stand up and say, I don't like a particular thing being taught to my kid because it's not allowing them to think critically. You're putting things in there. You're saying this is fact and this is definitive. And it's not. Sometimes it's outright not a fact.
But, Mom, my other argument is where would you go now for the down the middle news? Because, like, the stuff that we read, even then, I don't feel it's
An adjacent to this, my other article I put up was Catherine Herridge, right? So she's a reporter on mainstream media. She was with Fox and then she went over to CBS News, but she's done other stuff. I don't know her whole history. She's a very good investigative reporter, meaning she digs till she gets the facts. Is it perfect all the time? Not necessarily, but remember a few years ago, people were complaining in embassies around the world that they were getting very bad headaches and something
Yeah.
was going on, and people went in to investigate. It sounded a little conspiracy ish. They pulled the people out. Well, she had an interview with somebody, an authority in the military who's also a neuroscientist, and she goes through, if you look at the article, I'm not going to break it down for you.
It's
Each
actually a
thing they
little
talked about,
podcast that they did. They did a little.
yeah,
It was a
each
little
thing they
video.
talked about. These things are absolutely true. Okay? It's called I can't even read it. Microwave weapons, directed energy weapons, and they are real, and it is documented by this neurosurgeon, military. I mean, as real as this individual says. We've documented it. We've examined people. There are these mysterious illnesses were not in people's heads, and these weapons have been used. You can listen to the podcast and you can see. That's a perfect example of who do you believe? I believe her. She does the investigation, but you only know as much as you're talking to the people who are actively involved, right?
Yeah. Side note, I just speaking of medical stuff, and because I'm thinking it's got to be something that attacks the equilibrium. I just learned what the bends are. Have you ever heard this?
Yes.
Right in
Yes.
swimming. I did not realize
Yes.
that was a thing. I thought that was like a. I didn't realize that that could kill you. But I was watching
Yeah.
someone come up and they were like really quickly getting their gear off to avoid the bends.
Yes.
I was like, whoa.
If you come too quickly, yeah.
Yeah.
If
So
you come up too quickly, it's not good. Yeah.
yeah, so for those of you that don't know what it is, literally, like because you're underwater for so long, and then even though you have oxygen in your tank,
Yep.
I guess there's a certain like you can get too much oxygen and it goes to your brain, and then if you shoot up too fast, it like gets into I guess it's the blood of like the vessels and stuff in your brain, and it can kill you. It can cause strokes like immediately. So
Yeah,
they have
you
to
learn that when you scuba
decompress.
dive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to decompress, which
Yeah.
all
Well,
the
even
more reason
scuba
why I'm not
diving.
doing that.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, all the more reason. So
Well, if you do it right and you're careful, I mean, you just have to do it. You just can't rush it. You have to do it gradually, like everything else.
I
It's
ain't
kind
risking
of
it.
it's kind of similar in a way too, like for people who go to high altitudes, they're not used to the thinner air, right?
Right.
So the body has to adjust to that. You can't run as much. You can't do like a lot of football players. They have to do the oxygen and whatnot to prepare for what games in Colorado or whatnot because they're not used to it.
Right. I guess we could do. We really only have two left. No, I'm just looking at the articles because I'm trying to figure
I
out the
have a lot
order.
of articles. Yeah, I thought I threw a whole different lot of
Yeah.
different
Well, we
topics
only
out
have-
there because I tried to mix it up a little
Yeah, we
bit.
only
But
have two
I think
left.
we've covered everything.
Yeah, we got two left. So this one's pretty interesting. Why U.S. men think college isn't worth it anymore. Okay, guys, get ready for another hour podcast here because Mom and I debate on this one all the time.
No, I'm not. I'm not disagreeing with them. The three main things are rising tuition, masculinity issues that are being, thrown at them, and wanting a ready income. Don't blame them. So they're doing the research. This is what I like is appealing, and we talked a little bit about, the women's side article. I think a few podcasts ago, maybe we did. Maybe you and I talked personally, but women came out were saying, "Oh, men aren't. They're not going to college. They're not
Oh,
my
that's right, we
peers.
talked
I
about
don't
that
want
with
to get
Dad.
married. I want to blah blah blah." Okay. They make these men sound like they're dopes who just want to sit on the couch and collect, social security, whatever, a government check. The individuals in this article,
Matt
to their
Sprague.
credit-
Sorry.
to their credit, they're doing their research, right? And they're saying, I have other opportunities now. I don't need to go to college. I can't afford the tuition. I don't want to go in debt. I feel like a man getting a paycheck. It is very empowering to earn money, as much as it sucks to work, but you get that paycheck. You accomplish something. You did something. For them, that helps to, with masculinity. You can support yourself, maybe eventually family. It's not as though these guys are just saying, I'm not going to college. I'm not going to do anything, right? However, when you look at the workforce now for the younger men, working class men, they're less likely to be employed versus decades ago, 4 decades ago, 40 years ago. The inflation adjusted wages have barely budged in more than 50 years. So it's not
Right.
even like working class men are making more money when they are out there. So you can't blame them. They're less prone to marry and have kids, and they also tend to not have close friends, which I thought was interesting. But it's not all college's fault. Men with college degrees or higher still earn 200% of what men with no diploma do.
Right. There's
So
no
statistically, there's still a benefit to having a college degree, but
the
that's based on statistics of people who maybe been out for a
and
while, not fresh out of
we're
college.
also not factoring in college debt. They didn't really talk about this either. So like I
No,
know
no, but the individuals who are saying I'm not going to college because I don't want to
there's no
pay the
point.
debt, I
Yeah.
don't want to go into debt, versus I make the money now. And what's nice too is more and more schools are offering trade schools.
There's a
That's becoming popular again.
there's a girl at the golf course that when we went golfing yesterday, she was asking me psych questions because I remember last time I saw her, I was like, oh, I was a psych major. And she was throwing psych questions at me. She goes, are independent and dependent variables important? And I was just like, girl, I haven't been in college in 6 years, right? So I just said, no, it's not important. But I just was like, nah, don't worry.
Surprised you didn't
I was like,
call
don't
me.
worry.
Mom, I'm on the golf course.
I was like,
Somebody's
don't
asking me.
worry. I was like, don't worry about it. But I asked her like what she wanted to do because really your independent and dependent variables are really only important to like you talk about it when you're doing research, right? So I asked, I was like, do you plan on doing research in drug trials? And she goes, no, I just want to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And I was like, okay, so you're going to be doing about, so you got your 4 years of your psych degree and then you have med school or doctorate. And she's like, oh, wait, I have to do more than 4 years? I was like, yeah, dude, you got to do more than 4 years. And she was like, yeah.
MD, yeah.
So, and she goes, well, can I be a psych major without, like, can I become a psychologist without doing your MD or your PhD? I was like, oh, sweetheart, you're going to have a rough time here. But she, but
or you become a podcaster.
yeah, or you become a podcaster. Become a YouTuber that plays video games for a living.
You become a podcaster.
Yeah. But I think because when you factor in that much time, because I do think, although I do agree that college itself is kind of useless now, the degree's important. But I do think that there are certain degrees that you absolutely have to go to school for. Like if you're going to be a nurse, a doctor, psychologist, like anything medical, 100% you got to get that degree. And go to a nice school and all that stuff. But that being said, I don't even know how much med school is. I'm going to be honest. What is it, $250,000 just for med school? Am I way off?
Sure.
It's got to be close, right?
Depending on the school you go to, depending on, you have undergrad, you have graduate, all that stuff.
So
go ahead.
So there's the odds of you paying that off in the next 10 years after you graduate, unless you're like a heart doctor, maybe. And you're going to be living on ramen noodles if you want to pay that off. You're not going to be that doctor with a nice house.
Okay, so you have to look at the totality of things to understand what has gone on. And I do agree where we're at, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. But remember, 40 years ago, we were a country that produced things.
Yep.
You had the car factory. You had the widgets, the bag factory. Everybody saw Officer and a Gentleman where the woman worked at the bag factory, right? She wrapped bags all day with her mother, and every woman or young person there, they worked at the bag factory. Or you had the steel mill or whatever. You had jobs that you could do right out of college.
Right.
When our elites in government got rid of all that, what were you going to do? What kind of job were you going to get if you were a young man coming out of high school? You couldn't pump gas and support a family. You had to go to college and get a degree. So we hyped the whole college experience. You got to go to college. You have to go. You got to do that. You'll get a loan from the government to pay for it. Go to college, because when you get out, you're going to have access to white-collar jobs. You could be a doctor, a lawyer, a manager, investment banker, depending on what year, right? So we've sold a bill of goods that this was the be-all, end-all. And then it became a numbers game with these universities. Churn them out, churn them out. Get the money, get the loans, churn them out, churn them out. Well, now we're seeing with AI and other stuff, there aren't as many of those jobs anymore. Right. And we're seeing that people aren't coming out of these universities, to your point. They're not getting the degree that's preparing them to make them critical thinkers, to do the jobs that at the level that needs to be done. So the pendulum's swinging back. Now you've got young people saying, all right, I don't want to do college, so I can't get a job. And along comes somebody that a majority of these young people voted for, by the way, who says, I'm going to bring manufacturing back to this country. And you know what? Here we are now. And you know what's appealing to that? So many people of your generation, they want to do their YouTube at night. They want to do their TikToks. They want to sell their stuff online. They want to do their eBay, whatever. They don't necessarily want to be a doctor or lawyer all day. They want to go to the factory to make enough money to support them, pay their rent, pay their bills, while they do this other social media
Yeah.
persona that they have and make money on that. So that didn't exist 40 or 50 years ago. There were no other alternatives. You got out of high school, you got a job, but the job was there. You worked at the factory dad was at, or you worked at the hair salon when mom worked. It was an automatic thing.
I was on the
Then,
phone. I was on the phone with Papa today because today's my grandfather's birthday. Shout out to Pops if he's watching. He was telling me how he caddied in high school for $3 a weekend. Basically, came out to like $6.
right.
And I was like, because he had to pay for grade school as well. I'm sorry, high school. And I was just like, man, that's crazy to think about. Like,
Can't do it anymore. It's adults who do
yeah, you
the
couldn't
job.
do that.
Right. Remember we talked about that. I said nobody worked at McDonald's as an adult. That was a kid job. That's how you learned how to make change, how to deal with the public. It didn't matter if you lasted 2 weeks and you moved on. They figured that it was where you cut your teeth in the business world, in the outside world. You can't get a job with that
Mom,
anymore. It's all adults doing it.
What was your first job? Was there anything besides the liquor store, or was that the first job?
No, I babysat when I was of age, right?
Yeah, that's
I was a
stupid. That doesn't
babysitter.
count.
And then I actually worked, it sounds more official than it was. I wasn't a security guard, but I worked for security at our civic center when I was in high school. So I walked people to their seats when there was an event going on, whether it was not the hockey games. We weren't allowed to work the hockey games. But if there was a concert or some sort of event going on, my friend's
Really?
parents did security. She got me a job there. I did that in high school. I have to think it's kind of a blur, but I did odd jobs in college too, just to make some money. But I went to college, knowing full well I was going to do a job afterwards. But that's the point. It was a different world back then. And plus, now you have more women doing the jobs that men used to do.
Yeah, to keep
Even
taking
from the
more
time that
from
I was
us.
younger.
Keep taking more from us. God damn it.
Well, there are more women in college. More women are getting degrees. More
Yeah.
women are coming out. But you know what? Give it time. These same women are going to realize as the economy, I'm not saying they're wrong, but as the economy changes and the pendulum swings, they're going to start saying, and I saw it already in that article, why am I busting my hump here? I'm a single mom. Why am I having kids? Why am I doing any of this stuff? Is your job fulfilling you that much that you're willing to give up all the other stuff? Kudos to you if it does. But I refuse to believe that every young woman out there graduating is totally satisfied by the job they have and is willing to give up all that other stuff.
Right.
When you're young and stupid, you love all that. You think, I'm going to be a woman. I'm going to take on the world. I'm going to do a man's job. God bless you. Nothing wrong with that. Thankfully, we live in a world where that's possible now. But like many men, women are going to have their midlife crisis too, where they're going to hit the wall and say, wow, this is what I gave up everything else for?
Right. Yeah. It's kind of a interesting way of looking at that.
And young men are seeing it now, and they're seeing it at a young age. I don't need to go in the rat race for 4 years, go into debt. Yeah, maybe I'll make more money, but at least now I got a paycheck, I got a job, and they're thinking it through without a degree. So, anyhow.
Hello, best YouTuber ever. Yeah, it's just tough because, as I said, I still know kids at Scranton, right? I'm 6 years out now. Yeah, 6 years out. And I know kids that are still paying off their debts because Scranton was so expensive. Like I would
You're
say,
not 6 years out. You're longer than 6 years
what
out.
am I? I can't do math. 18, 19, 20, 21. I was class of 2018. So what am I? It's 2025.
Were you 2018?
I was
Yeah.
class of 2018. So what is that? 6 years? No. Am I bad at math? Oh, going on 7. So this will be 7 years out.
Okay.
Right? Am I right? 2019, 20.
That doesn't
21,
make sense.
22,
I guess
23,
so. Mike
24,
just
25.
graduated. You're, what, 6 years older than he is?
Yeah. So this
6
will be
years older.
7
All
years
right,
out.
7 years. Wow.
What was this? Oh, but obviously, like Scranton, obviously expect too much for what it's worth. Just saying, throwing that out there. If anyone in Scranton's watching, transfer. But like, I think it goes to show that I don't feel like unless it's an Ivy League school, which even then those are kind of losing their
And you're
meaning.
cutting out.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Even those are a if it's not an Ivy League school, I feel like all colleges are kind of the same degree wise. I feel like they're kind of losing their meaning. Like I think we're getting to your point about the trade schools and stuff. I think it's more so it's becoming more and more about what you can do rather than what your degree is. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're finding as time goes by that the education is not at the quality that it used to be. Is that true of all schools? No. But we're identifying a lot of issues in Ivy League schools. Not to say that they don't have the best medical school or law schools. Overall, though, there are issues in some of their areas of where they're being taught. But everything trickles down to, from high school up. You got kids going to college who don't know how to read. That's
Right.
absurd to me. That it's just absurd.
But are they sick at
So
sports? Are they good at sports? Because then it makes sense. Put
no,
that guy
I'm
on
not
the
even talking
football
about
team.
athletes. I'm not going to go down that road about the athletes. I'm just talking basic students. And I saw it as a parent when I saw you guys going to school, and everybody had to take a 1.5 credit class on how to write a paper. What the hell is that? You just went through 4 years of high school. Somebody was supposed to teach you then how to write a paper. And I'm not singling you guys out. Everybody had to do it.
Who
That tells
cares
you
if he
that a
can't?
good
Who cares
that
if
tells
he
you
can't
that a
write
good
his own
chunk of
name?
people could not write a paper,
Yeah.
couldn't write a paper,
Yeah.
right? That they had to create a universal class for that. So, and that was when you started, and that was over 7 years ago,
Yeah.
almost 11 years ago. So, what does that tell you about the quality? Fast forward now, I got people in Ivy League schools suing because they never had to read a book. Are you kidding
Yeah,
me?
which is crazy.
Right.
But that's okay, Mom. You know why? Because a tuition-free school created by Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan will start next year. Who needs college? Mark Zuckerberg's got it, Mom. Because he's got the right to teach people. After he just laid
Okay.
off a ton of Meta people.
I saw
Yeah,
that.
he just laid off like his
Tuition-free
entire
school.
Oculus team.
Okay.
But
Well, tuition free is great. What system is he going to use? You have to fall into a DEI
he's
category. Or what?
he's changing the philanthropy focus, Mom. So I forget what it said about. I mean, it's trying to hit everything. There was nothing that he's like specifically trying to hit. But I mean, it's kind of like to my understanding, it's like a moving school. Like it's in each state, so they just kind of pick people up as you go. And then I think eventually it's just going to be like a fully online class. I don't know. It's
Okay.
But this is what we're kind of talking about. I feel like the degree of what college is worth is just going down every year. Because again, I know very successful people who never didn't even graduate high school, let alone college. Given they're outliers, don't get me wrong, but
With the age of AI, with the age of technology, we know brick and mortar is eventually going to go away. Every sci fi book talks about that. Learning will be done on a tablet. You will pick and choose what you want to know. What's a concern is as long as we have the freedom of choice to pick what we want to learn, and back to what we were saying, you need to be able to critically think to discern who's the best expert in this area that I want to learn about, right? Who is it worth my dollars or my crypto or whatever money we're using in the future, wampum, to pay for this individual to lecture me on, how to build a car or how to advance in science or whatnot. You will pick and choose blocks of information. Now, will it fall under the Harvard blocks or the Yale and the MIT? Who knows in 50 years what it's going to look like? All I know is human beings need to be able to do critical thinking. Our educational system in this country, maybe even more so than around the world, but we know in communist countries too, they pick and choose what you can think about. Right. That's not critical thinking.
The other downside to not going to college is the social life. Brooke and I were just talking about this yesterday. The social life of kids my age who didn't go to college is one of two things. They either partied their way like drinking underage through college or like what would be considered college, or they have no social life whatsoever. Like can't even talk to people. So, because we were talking about how do you fix someone with poor communication skills? What do? Right, you just throw them in with the wolves?
I told you in that article, that's one of the things they noticed of these young men who didn't go to college. They
Right.
have no real friends. They don't have close friends.
Well, I'm not even talking about that. I mean like literally can't talk to someone. Because like you and me, obviously, I think all my brothers and I, you can throw us in a room of 50 people that we don't know and I'll come out with friends. But I didn't realize how hard that is for some people.
Well, yes. I mean, that's not necessarily an educational thing. There are different personalities too that play into
Right.
it. Some people in general, they go to college forever and they still can't talk in a room. They can have their PhD and they're not comfortable socializing. Sometimes it's a personality trait. Traditionally what college was supposed to do for you, it teaches you a trade or whatever, but it was also supposed to make you a well-rounded person, a critical thinker, somebody who can, You dabble in a little bit of everything, and that builds you out. You learn a little bit of the classics, you learn some science, you learn some math. Then they tried to introduce that into the high school level so that you become a more well-rounded person. So you can talk with people at different levels, right? You may not have expertise in something, but you're not an idiot and have no idea what you're
Right.
talking about, right? And that's all part of critical thinking. Critical thinking helps you to develop as an individual, helps you to think outside the box, outside of yourself, and to be interested in other people. Does it always work? Obviously not, right? And it's the opposite. When you indoctrinate people, that's the opposite of critical thinking.
Right. Because we were just talking about, like, how do you break someone who just can't, like, break someone into talking to people who can't communicate? And I was just thinking, like, how I did it, I guess, in the sense of, if you, as I said, like, if you just throw me into a room of 50 people, I'll be fine. But there's people that can just, like, they'll just sit in a corner to themselves. And I don't know how that's possible. Like, my brain can't compute that.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with how you're raised, the environment you're raised in. And uh, regardless of your educational level, you don't have to be a genius. If your parents, whoever raised you, give you a sense of confidence, basically, trust in yourself, confidence in yourself, and also this understanding of nobody's better than anybody else. You could be smarter, you could be better paid, you could be far more intelligent, you could be an athlete, you could be all these things. That's special about you. But it doesn't make you a better person than anybody else, right?
Right.
That goes back to that old Christian ideal of we're all equal. But we're all given gifts. And you can either choose to do something with those gifts or not do anything and stifle it. And then what are you doing for yourself? Regardless of the rest of the world around you, right? You've got to improve yourself. And that's up to parents, you would hope. Doesn't always happen. Could be a teacher, could be a rabbi, could be anybody. They find those gifts in you and they try and encourage to bring it out. That gives a person a sense of confidence as they go through life. And it helps them to feel more comfortable in any environment because they know themselves, right?
Yeah.
They're not intimidated in the sense that, wow, you're a great athlete. I'd really like to know more about what you do, or I'm very fascinated. I could never do what you do.
Yeah.
People love to, any environment, Chris, and you probably know this. One thing that's true universally, people love to talk about themselves, right?
Yeah, as me. I'm a narcissist. It's what I do.
But this is it.
That's
Well, you
Well,
like
hello.
to tell people too much,
Yeah.
but my point is, you're an open
Worship
book,
me.
and
Yeah.
some people are comfortable being that way because they're indifferent to people's, opinions.
Yeah.
But if you're ever in that situation, you can never go wrong asking other people about themselves. What do you do? Tell me about your family. This,
Right.
that.
Like,
'Cause
just to have a
people love
conversation.
to know
Yeah,
about themselves,
exactly. That's
right?
what words.
It's what they know. Yeah. And they're not intimidated by it, right?
Yeah.
No, they may not want to tell you everything, and that's their right. But then they have an opportunity to turn it on you. And that's when you get to come out of your shell and talk about yourself. But there's just some people who are not comfortable talking to other individuals. They prefer one-on-one. Nothing wrong with that.
Right. Those good words of wisdom, Mother. So, we did all of our articles. So, anyone that has any questions, we'll open it up. I just want to go grab my thing from Brooke next door. So let me just see. Everyone said hi.
Hey, you're gonna go grab a cheesecake,
I'm just
and
gonna.
you won't
I'm
let me
just.
go check on your grandmother?
Oh, go for
I
it.
gotta check on your grandmother.
for
and you
it.
want to go get a cheesecake?
Yeah, the
Ask
difference is
your-
mine takes 2
ask the podcasters,
seconds.
What's more important, Chris?
The
The freaking
cheesecake.
cheesecake or me making sure my mother isn't up
I
there
don't want it to
terrorizing your
melt.
father?
I don't want to melt. Mine takes
Don't
2
give a
seconds.
damn. You can wait till the end of the podcast to go get your damn cheesecake.
I was just gonna sprint over, throw it in my fridge. Sound like it's a long
Well,
walk.
I'm
but it's
gonna
fine.
check. Or you say that I gotta check on your grandmother.
That's fine. I can say. I can answer
You
questions.
check. I'll go check.
God, my host is a whatever.
Talk about it.
All right. So, any questions? It doesn't have to be about anything we talked about. It can literally be anything else. So yeah, just throw them at us. YouTube, games, whatever. I finished the first Berserker today. Let me tell you, for those of you that haven't played that game and you're a Souls player, strongly recommend. What a fantastic game that is. That was hard though. It took me. Oh, that was way
I
faster than I
kid
thought.
you not. She's watching something on Hallmark with a newspaper and her headset on. Not even watching the show. Reading a newspaper with the headset on.
Maybe she just likes to hear
So
it.
she's fine. All right, go run and get your cheesecake.
All right.
What were you just talking about with everybody? So they're not sitting there dead air while you're running to go get
they were.
cheesecake.
Well, if you want to know, we were just talking about. Speaking of Brooke, because I was just talking about running to get my cheesecake. I was just saying how I finally finished this game that I've been freaking working on forever. So I'm recommending it to everyone. So
you keep cutting out in the podcast. I hope it's not.
Don't yell at me.
No, but I just don't want it to ruin your recording.
No, it's good. It's your end because I'm looking at my internet and my internet's perfect. So
get Brooke to like shove your cheesecake under the door so you don't have to stop.
She's in chat right now, Mom. I'm gonna run over and grab it before we do the things, but yeah. So if anyone in any of the chats has questions,
wait till the end. Why do you have to grab it now? Can't you wait till the end of the podcast?
If it melts, Ma, what happened? Does the cheesecake melt?
Done because I gotta go. I'm a caregiver to a 91-year-old. I can't stay on forever.
Get it together, Mother. This is show business.
Come on. Even the dog's down here with me. He doesn't want to be up there. Your father's probably hiding right now. I can't do this. I can't stay.
Are you giving up on the podcast already? Are you giving up?
My role has changed. I now have and when I say full time, I mean full-time job. Okay.
Taking care of a 91-year-old who can wander. Who can wander? Job. Yeah, a 91-year-old that can actually wander. I mean, if no one has any questions. I should
put my ding dong down so you people can all hear what I hear at 2 o'clock in the morning. 4 o'clock
oh,
in
the
the morning.
freaking ding dong, yeah.
Ding dong.
She's got a beeper, so because when she has to get up at night,
you call me to help her, but anyhow.
Oh, yeah. So you hear the little ding dong, and it's like, oh, okay. My favorite is when she's done with her calls with Chuck. She goes, like, you hear the ding dong because she has to tell everyone she's done. It's like, okay.
Not here, she doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, really? I guess she really doesn't want to. She really doesn't want to disturb Dad. She must think Dad's a tyrant.
Well, I was actually able to sleep in my own bed last night with the ding dong because it didn't wake up. This was the first test because your dad was home last night. You know, he's used up the grandfather, so he's back, and I had it the night before when I was by myself with the dog, with my door open, and she pressed the ding dong, and I could feel the vibration. It vibrates too, which is good. So I have it like pinned to me. So I woke up and I go, all right, the dog didn't start freaking out in the middle of the night, which is good. I didn't want Bo barking and waking everybody up. So Dad came home. You know, Dad's not sleeping too well lately either. So he goes, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to hear the ding dong or whatever. And he didn't. So that was good. So I was able to, that's like a huge improvement over the past where I'd have to be in another room and the dog follows me. Anyhow, this is boring for your podcasters, but it's a full-time job. So screw your cheesecake. You can wait till the end.
Yeah, well, as I said, no one's asking any questions. I think we scared everyone away.
Yeah, they want to talk about the Pope or my.
Yeah, here's a question. Soft question. Here's a soft question. Tacos or pizza? I'm going to pick tacos. So much more you can do with a taco than pizza. You pick pizza over a taco? Think of how much you can do with a taco.
I don't like everything in a taco.
That's crazy. A pizza is just a spread out taco when you think about it.
Yeah, but I like the variance. I like the crust. And you can have thin pieces, thick pizza. Taco to me, I'm not a big salsa fan.
Okay, so
I don't mind the cheese, goes all over. I really like a sour cream, but I can stick sour cream on anything and eat it.
Yeah, good point. But the other
put it on bread and eat it.
The other problem with tacos or with pizza though is like once the toppings are on, you can't take the toppings off. Whereas with the taco, let's say I don't want salsa, I just don't. There's so many more things. Also, I'm a soft shell taco kind of guy. I ain't doing.
Oh yeah, see, I don't like the soft shell. I prefer. Well, depends on it. I'm not really a taco Mexican food person. Never have been.
That's crazy.
When I have it, I don't mind like those nachos we had. I told you down at Moxie's in Miami. Yeah, you could sponsor us because those are awesome freaking nacho platter that you have, and that was really good. I haven't had nachos like that since a place called, I'm going to age myself, Bennigan's in college. There's a place, it was like an Applebee's or a TGI Fridays. It was called Bennigan's. And I went there a couple times with my friends. They had an enormous nacho platter. Not taco, nacho platter. Delicious. I've yet to replicate it, and Moxie's came pretty damn close in Miami.
The only one I can think of is the one in when we went down to the Jersey Shore. I forget what that restaurant was, but we went and got nachos. I can remember the restaurant, but I don't remember.
Where, like Point Pleasant, Long Beach Island?
Yeah, now I'm wondering if I'm confusing it with Cape May, but the Cape May trips. I don't know. My memory is starting to go. I'm getting old, Ma.
Oh, 29 and the memory's going.
Starting to
Okay,
go.
wait till you're almost 60 like me, okay? Good luck.
Yeah, everything's starting to blur.
Who are you? Which son
Yeah,
are you?
really. But yeah, I guess we have no other questions tonight, so I guess we can wrap it up there, especially since you got some babysitting you got to do. So, all right, guys. So the only things
You
I have
don't say baby, it's senior sitting. It's
senior sitting, is that what we call it?
sitting. Yes,
Um,
senior sitting.
So the only things I have to promote is I put out a video today on a game called Post Trauma. Fantastic game if you're big into the old school Resident Evil games. Very impressive. So go check that out. I didn't have time to post any other videos because the week has just been so crazy. But I should be back on the regular schedule next week, unless I'm in Miami next weekend. Then that's a problem. Then I have to reset the schedule. I forgot about that.
Right.
But yeah, we'll see. So social media, promo codes, stream links, Discord down below, and we will see you guys hopefully next week. If not, well, if I leave for Miami, it'll probably be 2 weeks. But yeah, you know what I mean. So you guys have a good one. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and I'll see you on Monday at
Thanks
6
for
p.m.
joining us.
Yeah.